It began in the year 1947 in the desert near the Dead Sea. A young Bedouin shepherd, searching for a lost goat, stumbled upon a cave that would change the understanding of ancient spirituality forever. Inside were clay jars sealed for nearly 2,000 years. In them rested fragments of scrolls written in ancient Hebrew and Aramaic. Among them was a strange text called "The War of the Sons of Light Against the Sons of Darkness." This writing, later catalogued as 1QM, was not merely a military record. It was a prophecy, a revelation of cosmic proportions. The scroll described the ultimate confrontation between good and evil, light and darkness, order and chaos. It was the sacred vision of a mysterious brotherhood who called themselves the Essenes. The Essenes were unlike the other religious groups of ancient Judea. They lived in isolation near Qumran, beside the salty waters of the Dead Sea. They rejected the corruption of the priesthood in Jerusalem and turned instead to purity, discipline, and spiritual preparation. For them, the world was divided between two forces, the Prince of Light and the Angel of Darkness. Every human being belonged to one of these two realms. As the text says, God has appointed the spirits of truth and falsehood to rule in the hearts of men. Their lives were a constant ritual of readiness. They believed that history was moving toward a final battle, a day when the hosts of light would rise against the armies of Belial, the dark power who ruled the fallen world. The Essenes saw themselves as the chosen warriors of this coming age. In their prayers, they called upon the angel Michael, commander of the heavenly armies, to lead them in the war of the end times. The scroll describes this war in vivid detail. It speaks of divisions of soldiers, sacred trumpets that would sound before the battle, and banners bearing the names of God. But these were not ordinary weapons. Their strength came from faith and righteousness. The sons of light shall be mighty through the power of God's hand, and he shall strike down the company of Belial. The cosmic dualism that filled this scroll would later echo through other spiritual traditions. In early Christianity, we find the same theme of a final struggle between the forces of Christ and the Antichrist, between the kingdom of heaven and the powers of the abyss. In Gnostic writings, this conflict becomes an inner drama, the awakening of divine light within the soul, struggling against ignorance and matter. The Essenes believed they stood on the threshold of this final age. Their community was not simply a religious order, but a fortress of light in a world consumed by corruption. They purified themselves through ritual baths, studied sacred texts, and practiced silence. Everything they did was preparation for the moment when heaven would open and the armies of light would descend. What makes the war scroll so striking is not only its prophecy of battle, but its vision of divine justice. It reveals a world where every soul must choose a side, consciously or not. To the lot of light belong those who walk in the path of righteousness. To the lot of darkness belong those who choose the counsel of wickedness. Yet the scroll does not simply point to an event in history. It reflects a timeless truth, the conflict between higher and lower forces within every human being. The Essenes may have awaited a visible war, but the deeper message is spiritual. The Prince of Light and the Angel of Darkness dwell not only in the heavens, but also in the human heart. Perhaps that is why this ancient text still speaks to us. The battle it foretells continues in our world, in every act of injustice, every struggle for truth, every choice between compassion and cruelty. The scroll of Qumran was written long ago, yet its prophecy feels strangely close. The question it leaves us with remains as haunting as ever. Has the final war already begun, not in the world outside, but within each of us? In the sacred pages of the War Scroll, the universe is divided not merely by geography or politics, but by profound spiritual allegiance. The Essenes, who lived in the deserts near the Dead Sea, spoke of two great armies that stretch across time and space, the Sons of Light and the Sons of Darkness. These are not only collections of men, but expressions of higher truths, archetypes of moral and spiritual choice. The sons of light are described as the righteous, steadfast, and vigilant. They are the children of the covenant, guided by the Spirit of truth, devoted to God's commandments, and prepared to uphold divine order in a world threatened by chaos. Their hearts are pure, their intentions unwavering. As the scroll declares, the sons of light shall battle against the company of darkness in the day appointed by God. These warriors of light are called to act not out of pride or desire for conquest, but from a profound sense of justice and obedience to divine will. They are the embodiment of hope, courage, and faith, carrying the unseen weapons of wisdom, discipline, and prayer. In contrast, the sons of darkness follow Belial, also known as Beliar, the prince of deception and chaos. They embody all that is corrupt, violent, and selfish. The scroll portrays them as organized, relentless, and cunning, masters of deceit, who seek to undermine order wherever it exists. Their power lies in fear, hatred, and the seduction of weak hearts. In many ways, they are the mirror of the sons of light, reflecting the struggle that each person faces between integrity and corruption, between light and shadow within themselves. The conflict between these two forces is more than a prophecy of physical battle. The Essenes understood it as both literal and symbolic. Each clash of armies represents the timeless struggle of human souls. Every act of cruelty, every betrayal, every moment of selfishness is an echo of the sons of darkness. Conversely, every act of compassion, every pursuit of truth, every moment of courage resonates with the sons of light. The scroll repeatedly emphasizes that this cosmic struggle is a call to vigilance, a reminder that the fate of the world is intertwined with the choices of individuals. The symbolism extends further. The Essenes believed that through this conflict, the world would be purified. The trials and battles, both visible and unseen, were necessary to restore balance and divine order. The sons of light are not merely fighting for victory, but for the restoration of a sacred equilibrium. The sons of light shall fight according to the orders of God, and they shall vanquish the forces of Belial, bringing justice to the earth. The scroll portrays this as an inevitable outcome, a triumph not of force alone, but of righteousness aligned with divine law. Yet the Essenes also recognized the gravity of the struggle. They knew that the sons of darkness could tempt even the most devoted. The battle was never guaranteed, and vigilance was required at every level in the community, in the family, and in the soul itself. Every member of the Sons of Light was expected to train, to purify, and to align themselves with the greater purpose of God's plan. This was not merely preparation for war, but a spiritual practice, a method of attuning the human spirit to cosmic truth. The War Scroll presents a vision both vivid and haunting. It is a world in which good and evil are not abstract ideas but living forces, present in every choice, every action, and every heartbeat. The Sons of Light and the Sons of Darkness are eternal symbols, reminding us that the greatest battle is not only fought on distant plains or in ancient prophecies, but within the very fabric of our own hearts. The Essenes teach that by aligning with the light, each soul participates in the cosmic restoration, helping to bring a world once shadowed by chaos into the clarity and harmony of divine order. The Essenes, who preserved the War Scroll in the caves of Qumran, did not imagine the final battle as chaos without structure. Every movement, every action, every division of the Sons of Light was carefully ordained. The scroll itself reads like a sacred manual, a blueprint of cosmic warfare, meticulously detailing the organization of armies, the timing of attacks, and the rituals that must precede combat. Before the battle, the Sons of Light are to assemble in precise formations, each unit bearing its own banner inscribed with the names of God. Trumpets will sound, signaling readiness and invoking divine protection. The scroll emphasizes the spiritual nature of these preparations. The mighty hand of God shall strike the armies of Belial, it declares, reminding the reader that victory is not achieved by swords alone, but by alignment with divine will. Each ritual, each declaration of allegiance is both a prayer and a shield, uniting the hearts of the faithful with the light that governs the universe. The Essenes describe the army of light as divided into ranks and divisions, each with a sacred function. Some are designated as priests and teachers, who strengthen the spirit of the warriors through prayer and instruction. Others are soldiers trained in the discipline of combat, but even their strength is symbolic, representing the disciplined human spirit ready to act under divine guidance. The scroll does not leave the reader in doubt. The power of the army lies not in its numbers, but in its righteousness, its unwavering faith, and its unity with the laws of God. Time itself is measured in the scroll as part of the battle plan. The wars are prophesied to last 40 years, echoing the purification of Israel in the wilderness, the cycles of spiritual trial and maturation found in ancient traditions. 40 is not a random number, it is a sacred measure of transformation. Just as the Israelites emerged from 40 years in the desert, purified and ready to inherit the promised land, so too will the sons of light, through decades of struggle, emerge victorious, purified, and aligned with divine order. The scroll also describes the enemies with precise detail. The armies of Belial are organized and cunning, yet their strategies are ultimately futile against the righteousness of the sons of light. Every trap, every assault, every surge of darkness is anticipated and countered through devotion and preparation. The Essenes understood that the battle is both physical and spiritual. Weapons and armor alone are insufficient. The light of truth, courage in the face of fear, and faith in God's guidance are the true instruments of victory. Mystically, this blueprint of battle extends far beyond historical or literal war. Esoteric traditions across the world speak of similar cosmic patterns. In Gnostic texts, the soul must navigate the forces of ignorance and material entrapment, guided by knowledge and divine insight. In Eastern traditions, the struggle is framed as a journey of awakening, in which inner discipline and moral clarity restore harmony to the universe. The War Scroll situates the Essenes within this wider mystical vision. The order of the cosmos is preserved not by brute force, but by the alignment of human action with spiritual law. The battle plan of heaven reminds us that the final conflict is not merely a distant prophecy. It is a living pattern, echoed in every act of integrity, every choice to act with justice, and every moment of spiritual clarity. The armies of light are summoned not only on desert plains, but in the conscience of humanity itself. The mighty hand of God shall strike the armies of Belial, and yet this hand moves in conjunction with those who choose the path of light, teaching that the true instruments of cosmic order are faith, righteousness, and the courage to uphold divine truth. The scroll does not merely predict a war, it provides a strategy for life, a map for navigating the darkness that surrounds and dwells within us. It invites the faithful to rise, to organize not only armies, but hearts, minds, and souls in preparation for the eternal confrontation between light and darkness. The Essenes who preserved the War Scroll were not merely preparing for battles in distant fields. Their vision of the final conflict extended far beyond armies and banners into the unseen realms of the human spirit. They understood that the greatest war is not fought with swords or shields, but with thoughts, desires, and intentions. The scroll, while outwardly a prophecy of cosmic battle, is equally a manual for inner vigilance, a guide to the war that rages within every soul. In the language of the Essenes, light and darkness are not only forces in the heavens, but realities within the human heart. Every individual carries both, and the choices we make determine which force grows stronger. The sons of light are mirrored in our capacity for compassion, honesty, and courage, while the sons of darkness reflect our fears, resentments, and impulses toward greed and deceit. As the scroll proclaims, "To the lot of light belong those who walk in the path of righteousness. To the lot of darkness belong those who choose the counsel of wickedness." The text encourages awareness that the battlefield of the apocalypse is also a battlefield of consciousness. Victory, according to the Essenes, begins when one recognizes and masters the impulses of darkness within oneself. The struggle is not to eradicate the shadow, but to understand it, to prevent it from guiding action. Just as the armies of light must prepare carefully and follow divine orders, so too must the mind and spirit be trained through discipline, reflection, and spiritual practice. This inner war requires honesty with oneself, courage to face fear and desire, and an unwavering commitment to higher principles. The wisdom of the Essenes finds echoes in other ancient traditions. In Zoroastrian teachings, humanity is seen as caught between Ahura Mazda, the spirit of light, and Angra Mainyu, the spirit of darkness. Every thought, word, and deed contributes to the cosmic balance. Similarly, in Gnostic texts, the soul must navigate through the deception of the archons, guided by the insight and wisdom of Sophia. Even in early Christian writings, spiritual warfare is described as a battle against principalities and powers, a conflict in which the faithful must arm themselves with faith, truth, and love. These teachings converge on a single truth: the cosmic struggle exists first within each human being. The Essenes practiced this inner discipline through daily rituals of purification, study of sacred texts, and communal devotion. They sought to align themselves with the Spirit of truth so that their hearts would not falter when confronted with temptation or fear. Their lives were a living reflection of the War Scroll's higher purpose, the cultivation of light within oneself as preparation for both external and internal trials. The symbolic battles of the sons of light and darkness thus serve a dual purpose. They illustrate a cosmic order in which justice will be restored and the wicked defeated. At the same time, they are mirrors of the human condition, revealing that the true confrontation lies within the human soul. The victories and defeats we experience in thought and intention shape not only our destiny but also the spiritual fabric of the world. By understanding this hidden meaning, the prophecy of the Essenes becomes more than an apocalyptic vision. It is a map for awakening, a call to recognize the forces of light and darkness within ourselves and to consciously choose the path of righteousness. In every decision, every moment of awareness, every act of compassion, the battle is waged. The apocalypse, they teach, is not only a distant event in time, but a present reality, unfolding in the conscience of humanity. The true battlefield is our own soul, and the triumph of light begins when we dare to fight for it within ourselves. The War Scroll preserved by the Essenes does not end in uncertainty or despair. After decades of conflict, after years of spiritual and physical struggle, the text unveils a vision of inevitable victory. The sons of light, guided by righteousness and divine wisdom, will triumph over the forces of darkness. The scroll declares, "And God shall raise his great hand against Belial and all the spirits of his lot." This is not merely a promise of conquest. It is the assurance that cosmic order will be restored and that the hidden patterns of justice embedded in the universe will finally prevail. In this vision, the world itself undergoes a profound transformation. The defeat of the sons of darkness is not an act of destruction alone, but of purification. Every shadow that once spread fear, every deceit that corrupted hearts, every impulse of cruelty and selfishness is swept away. In their place rises clarity, harmony, and light. The Essenes describe the aftermath as a kingdom of God established eternally, a realm where the spiritual and physical are aligned, where divine order permeates every corner of existence, and where humanity lives in accordance with the principles of truth and righteousness. Yet the scroll speaks to more than a distant era. Its message echoes in the present, for the struggle between light and darkness continues today, both within human consciousness and across society. Every act of corruption, every choice driven by fear or hatred resonates with the legacy of Belial. Every act of courage, every decision to uphold truth and justice, aligns with the Sons of Light. The cosmic battle is mirrored in our daily lives, in politics, in the unseen spiritual realms, and in the moral choices each person faces. The Essenes teach that the final victory is inseparable from vigilance and preparation. Just as the armies of light trained, organized, and aligned themselves with God's will, so too must we cultivate awareness and integrity. The scroll reminds us that the kingdom of God is not only a future promise, but a present reality we participate in through conscious alignment with truth and compassion. It invites us to see the spiritual significance of every choice and to recognize that the triumph of light begins the moment we act in accordance with divine order. The prophecy of the final triumph is a vision of hope and transformation. It reveals that darkness, no matter how powerful, is temporary, and that light, once awakened, is unstoppable. The Essenes preserved this message for generations, not merely to foretell the end of time, but to illuminate the eternal patterns of the universe. The war of the sons of light and darkness is not a tale of the past. It is the story of our own awakening, the eternal struggle for the soul of the world.